Hails, Minions and Mortals, this is Fang from Lords of the Trident. You know, I had a weird sort of thought the other day. I mean, it's 2020, but people are still discovering music from the 60s and 70s. I think everyone goes through a phase where they experience albums like The Wall for the first time, and it doesn't seem like that's ever going to change. Recording technology has become cheap, and recording theory has cemented itself into an idea of what sounds good. There will always be new ideas and better ways to do things, but the idea of an album that sounds good hasn't really changed much in the last 40 years. I mean, look up recordings from the 30s and 40s and compare their sonic landscape to an album recorded in the 70s. Huge difference. Newer albums sound fuller, clearer, and better. Now compare an album from the 80s with an album from like 2010. Differences? Yeah, certainly, but in general they both sound good and they're certainly listenable by today's standards. No one would hesitate to put either album on their phone. So what does this mean? Well, until something comes along that completely changes the way that humans hear music, which is frankly not likely, an album that sounds good can remain popular forever. Also, because of the internet, the world will never really run out of copies of this album. I mean, if you make an album that people consider to be a masterpiece, it should last forever. Now, if that doesn't inspire you to get recording, nothing will. So, let's assume you've written a full album's worth of songs that you know will be instant hits on an album that will last forever, your magnum opus. But how do you go about properly preparing to record these masterpieces? And how do you do it on a budget? Well, strap in, kids, because today, Fang's gonna hit you with his DIY recording tips. Since Words of Fang is focused on a DIY approach to, well, almost everything, some of these tips will only apply to a situation where you're recording yourself. Whether you decide to record your magnum opus in your basement or in a multi-million-dollar recording studio, many of these tips will still apply. With that being said, the first set of tips are applicable for every recording situation. Number one, do you know the song? Yeah, this seems like a pretty silly question to ask, but oftentimes bands will hit the studio with a rough idea of how they want the song to end or how a certain part is supposed to be played. So before you sit down to record, make sure every member knows exactly how each part is supposed to be played, how the song is supposed to start, end, transition between parts, etc. The last thing you want to do is spend weeks preparing to nail that guitar part, only to learn that your other guitarist, who recorded first and is now on vacation in Fiji, changed the part without telling you. Okay, so you know how at the end we're like, yeah, I was thinking instead we could go, much better. Before you hit the studio, try rehearsing the song by removing the instruments. Play without vocals, then without guitar, then without drums. This forces each member to pay attention to the others. And you may end up hearing minutiae of how certain parts are performed that you would have otherwise never noticed. Number two, change everything or don't change anything.
Alright, let's say you're the vocalist in the band, right? And you smoke like a chimney. An 1800s Coltrane would be impressed with the amount of smoke you billow. I can't
keep doing this. But hey, you're recording in a week, so you've decided to stop smoking to prepare your voice for recording. Good idea? No! You're used to singing through that cancerous, decaying tar pit of a throat, and your bandmates and fans are used to hearing that smoky timbre in your voice. If you suddenly change everything a week before recording, not only will you be horrible to be around due to nicotine withdrawal, but your voice will significantly change and almost never for the better. Why? Well, you may be improving your vocal health, but think about it this way. You've trained yourself to play a very specific instrument with a very certain feel to it. If you suddenly replace the instrument that you've played for hundreds of hours with something slightly different, will you be 100% comfortable playing that new instrument? Probably not. While I'd certainly recommend stopping the inhalation of carcinogens and fire into your lungs, don't quit a week before hitting the studio. If, however, you're a guitarist / bassist / drummer, before you hit the studio, you want to change everything. That means new strings, new cables to replace that buzzing monstrosity, and potentially new tubes in your amp. Drummers should get new heads or possibly even a new cymbal to replace that cracked crash that you have. Before hitting the studio is the perfect time to get that flaky input jack replaced or fix that slipping machine head. You want your instrument in top condition before hitting record. Remember the mantra, garbage in, garbage out. 3, time to test your tone. So you're likely used to how your guitar sounds live, either in a club, a large room, or your practice space. You'll be unpleasantly surprised when a recording tech puts a microphone right up to your cabinet and suddenly that juicy tone that you're used to sounds, well, different than you expect. The tone you hear is a combination of how far you stand from your cabinet, how the room molds the sound, and where the speakers are pointing. I mean, think of a microphone like a giant ear. When you mic a cabinet, you're placing the equivalent of a giant ear right up to one point on your speaker. This is going to make things sound drastically different than the sound you hear bouncing around your practice space. So what to do? Well, turn your volume down and place your speakers at ear level. Pretend your ear is your microphone and place your head at a 90-degree angle to the cabinet. Play a little bit and see how the sound changes as you move closer. Use this technique again with the cabinet volume turned down to dial in a good recording tone. Also, take note of how the tone changes based on your ear's location on the speaker cone. Further away from the dust cap, the little round thing in the center, will sound more bassy, and closer in will give you more of a bite. Find a location that you like and make a mark on the cab, usually with tape, so that you can replicate that location with your microphone. And bear in mind that the tone will change with added volume, so you may want to experiment with an actual microphone at higher volumes. Number four, prepare. So if this is the first time you've been in a recording studio, prepare yourself for a stressful experience. You may spend hours trying different microphones, different cabinets, different microphone positions. You may take hundreds of hours and hundreds of takes trying to nail a certain guitar run. You may run into issues dealing with tempo or someone trying to change the arrangement of a song at the last minute. And if you're in someone else's studio, you have to do all of this while paying somebody like $60 an hour plus. These stressors can accumulate on each other, which can cause breakdowns, poor performance, and fights. So how do you prevent this? Well, you can't, at least not all of it. But you can prepare yourself for it mentally and physically. As the mantra goes, proper preparation prevents poor performance. Realize that you're headed into a stressful environment and you may have to be the cool head. Prepare yourself physically for the parts. I mean, warm up, practice beforehand, and take a break if you need it. Spending 15 minutes to mentally reset yourself and then nailing the part on the third try is better than an hour of misses. Oh, and do you have complicated songs that change tempos? You may want to create a tempo map for the recording engineer to follow ahead of time. And hey, do you have the ability to record in your practice space? You may want to record a scratch track, even if it's just a clear video of everybody playing their parts before hitting the studio. That way your members can hammer out any small details ahead of time. And small details can quickly turn into big problems in a studio. If you're paying someone to record you, using these tips and preparation techniques can literally save you hundreds, if not thousands, of dollars in studio time. That's more money that you can put into important parts of producing an album, mixing and mastering. So in the next video, we'll be talking about recording the tracks yourself in your own studio. Until then, get to prepping! Hey, if this video or any of the videos that we put out help you, or if you want to get some extra cool content, some behind-the-scenes stuff, some MP3s, some exclusive videos, please consider supporting the band by signing up for our metal army, the Lords of the Trident Patreon, at patreon.com/Lords of the Trident. Until next time, stay metal!